There's a bunch of people coming
Excellent.
down.
So what happened?
So please state your name.
Christian Andrade. I live in Pawtucket. I was at the Wyatt event back in September, and I gave my testimony and participated in the grand jury investigation. And we just heard the results directly from the Attorney General to tell us that there will be no charges pressed against the captain of the Wyatt, Captain Woodworth, and essentially that's the determination that the grand jury came up with, and he doesn't really have any of the details of how it all went down, but he relied on the people that he put on the case to do the investigation and carry out the case. And so essentially those are the results that many of us are not surprised by it. Certainly it just shows that again, law enforcement is not held to the same standards that we are, regular citizens that are using our rights to protest peacefully in many ways, and here's just another example that the system is just used not to preserve those rights and to let some people that can be violent and have these intentions to harm people to just get away with it.
And you got hit directly in the eye with pepper spray that night, right?
I was hit directly. My understanding now actually is that what was used was a CO spray, which is very different from regular pepper spray, and therefore that's why I ended up almost 3 weeks not being able to see through one eye. So yeah, I was essentially received the results of that violence unnecessary. There's way too many questions as to what arrangements were made between the Central Falls Police and the correctional officers and the captain. Why was not the police presence there to keep the peace? There were law enforcement at that time was not looking to arrest essentially anyone, and then the Wyatt seemed to be officers take matters into their own hands. So there's way too many questions here. This will not stop. I think the belief that many of us have that law enforcement is not held to the same standards. There will be still protests for immigration rights and for justice, and this will not deter us.
Do you think this might embolden these correctional officers now to be more violent with protesters
certainly
outside the Wyatt?
It's clear in a message. It's sending a message, to both protesters that violence by law enforcement will sort of be allowed, and it will send a message to people in law enforcement to be violent, and it's okay to do it because nothing will happen. And never mind the main reason why we were there, which is to vouch for the rights of immigrants that are being detained at these facilities, and that no one is holding those law enforcement people accountable. We have no idea what's going on in there, and we can tell that a minor inconvenience for someone not to be able to park could cause this type of violence. We don't know what that's doing to the people inside of the detention cells.
And how are you feeling emotionally right now?
Well, as I said, I'm not exactly surprised, by the results of this. I was at the grand jury, and the questioning of the grand jury wasn't really conducive to trying to find the truth. I think it was some other agendas potentially. But we need to keep on and certainly not able to trust in law enforcement and the system, and it will come down to citizens, continuing to put the pressure and elevate their voices for the people that are being oppressed by this.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, do you have
Hi.
a sec?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Could you please just state your name?
I'm Jared Goldstein.
And you are a law Dean of Law.
I'm the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs at Roger Williams University School of Law.
Yeah, and so we heard that Attorney General Neronha just told you guys that there will be no charges pressed in the protest incident. How are you feeling right now?
It's outrageous. I mean, later today, the Attorney General will give a statement in which he'll say that they presented all the facts, they did a serious investigation, but the truth is anybody who sat through that grand jury knows that the prosecutor came in with an agenda, and that agenda was to show, was to let these guys off, was to allow these corrections officers to drive over peaceful protesters with a truck, and then to come by and then to push us out of the way and spray us with pepper spray to get us out of the way and act like thugs. And the prosecutors made it clear to every single protester who testified that their agenda was to show that those actions were justified. So I'm not surprised by what the grand jury did. This is how the prosecutors presented the case. Neronha will say, he was surprised. He has no idea why the grand jury did what he did, but his prosecutor, made it clear that this was the result that they were going for. Neronha's going to say, I trust my prosecutors. He's a career prosecutor who has long experience, and I've worked with him for years. But I don't think Neronha knows what happened in the grand jury, which was witness after witness was asked about the dangers of the crowd, and weren't asked about their injuries, weren't asked about the officers who pushed them out of the way and pepper sprayed them. The prosecutors were clearly acting with the agenda to protect these thugs who tried to drive over peaceful protesters with a truck and then pepper sprayed us. And now there's a precedent, right? That is, if this is how you act to peaceful protesters, well, the next time there's a peaceful protest, maybe you have a green light to do that. Maybe you have a green light to treat the inmates inside the Wyatt with the same or even worse levels of violence that were inflicted upon us. This is what the result is today.
And is there any legal recourse involving the grand jury? Is there any way to have that investigated, in your opinion?
No. I mean, the only thing that we could bring a civil suit against the officers who are involved. I mean, I hope that the Attorney General actually looks into what actually happened in the grand jury so he can see the kind of bias and agenda that his prosecutors used. But there's no recourse that we have.
And do you think that civil action will be pursued by Never Again or any of the people involved that night?
I don't know.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Anything
Jared.
else? Cool.
No,
Thank you.
it's just fucking outrageous.
Yeah.
Hey, Jerry.
Hi.
Hi.
You're Jerry Belair.
Yeah.
I'm Kevin Andrade with the Providence Journal.
Hi, Kevin. How
Hi.
are you?
How's
it going, buddy?
What happened in there?
Well, that's unbelievable. The grand jury refused to indict for any reason whatsoever. I mean, it's so outrageous that the guy that drove into people, that accelerated into people and injured people,
Including yourself.
including myself, actually resigned the next day, recognizing that he was liable for injuring people, and the grand jury won't even indict on that. It's absolutely outrageous. The way that the witnesses were treated and directed before the grand jury, I'm not really surprised. It was just a really bad sort of process that we went through.
And you had your leg broken, correct? How's that going?
No, they thought it was broken. Initially, they had diagnosed it as being broken, and then they brought in the bone guy. He did 5 more x-rays, and it turned out that there was some ligament and tendon damage.
So how are you doing with your injuries right now?
I'm good. I'm fine.
And so you're clearly outraged by what just happened.
Absolutely. I mean, the guy drove into a group of people purposefully with the intention to do harm. What do you need? What does a grand jury need? If you don't allow the proper evidence to be given to the grand jury, you're going to get this kind of result. That's what happened here. I think that the Attorney General's person in charge here was just not competent in getting to the correct results.
And do you intend on pursuing any civil action?
Well, we're certainly going to talk about it. I hadn't thought about it, but now, I mean, it's just so outrageous that I think the result has to be that we make somebody pay for what was done.
So earlier, one of the people who was in the room with you, Christianrade, said that this just shows that law enforcement gets right of way and gets treated a lot differently from the rest of the public. Do you believe that this reinforces that?
Well, what happened here was clearly that the Central Falls Police didn't want to make arrests. So they had made, some arrangement with the Wyatt staff for them to leave and let the Wyatt staff do what they needed to do in order to bring the peaceful protest to a halt without having to make arrests. This is what happened. So yeah, law enforcement was complicit in this. Law enforcement continues to be complicit in this. And when a bunch of peaceful protesters can be injured by the actions of a dozen Wyatt employees, that's just absolutely the wrong message to send out to our citizens. We have the right to protest peacefully. Every right. without being injured by people, because the police don't want to be a part of it. They wanted to leave and leave it up to a group of non-police people, the guards, to hurt people.
Yeah. And do you intend on going back out onto the protest line after this?
Absolutely.
Does this strengthen your resolve, or is it the same as it was before?
My resolve has always been to go out and protest things that I don't think are right. Now, I've been arrested a number of times for various things, for nuclear weapons, for nuclear power, for standing up for people's rights. I mean, that's what people should do, and I have every intention of doing it. I have never, in any of the protests that I've been involved in, ever faced this kind of situation. It's always the same thing. The police officer comes up, they say, you're blocking a public roadway or you're trespassing, you'll have to move. And you can either move or be arrested. And you're arrested, you're charged with the whatever charge they were going to bring, and it's over.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened here.
Now, you said you were going to consider civil action. Who would you target with that?
Discussing it.
Okay.
It'll be under discussion.
Thank you.